Hello, everybody. Welcome to our reading for the Solstice 2022 as we welcome Cancer season, and we welcome Cancer season with intent, with clarity, with a desire to enter into our inner emotional realm and find the activation required in order for us to continue evolving emotionally into our experiences. Gemini season coming to a close has been a little all over the place, to be perfectly honest with you. From my perspective, I'm sure you felt it too. Gemini tends to do that to us. A lot happens, but at the same time, we have a hard time grounding ourselves. We have a hard time actually finding our footing because we feel that there are competing priorities for our attention, for we may find ourselves in the position where we can't actually figure out exactly what we think is going to make us feel better or expand. It is a game, and Gemini brings attention to the game-like aspects of life. So, if we've successfully navigated that, we probably have come to some sense of victory, whether that just be in arriving at the top of a mountain, or rather, should I say, the other side of a mountain, because you may also feel now that you find yourself in a valley once again, and that's part of the process, right? It's all peaks and valleys. So a lot of our energy in this week's reading is about purging the doubt, the fear, the old ways that are no longer relevant whatsoever, but that unfortunately we have been programmed to regurgitate under certain circumstances. And there's a strong message of faith and strength in our reading, and we get a little bit of a directive as to how that plays out for us. As we are moving into summer, through the solstice, obviously, we also find ourselves moving into some solar energy in this reading. It's actually all over the place, so we should probably focus on that. It is ironic to me that as a person who was born in the summer, I was born in late summer, so therefore for me, I've always had that sort of sense of the celebration of my birthday came with a looming sense of deterioration of the vibrational energy that I thrived on: heat, warmth, sun. Of course, all of those things change, and now, as a much more mature adult, I have found myself very often struggling with the beginning of summer, because Cancer has always been a season that, if we are not in balance, forces us into exploratory territory that may make us wish to function more like the crab and go inside our shell to protect ourselves. Not necessarily in the hermit sense of reinvigorating ourselves, if you see what I mean. So, anyway, all of these things to be explored together. Let's start with our Spirit Animal Oracle card of the week, which really? Well, we have two. I thought we only had one, so we have two, so we will take the two. The first that we have is Horse Spirit. Freedom is yours. Number 33. And let's hear some Horse Spirit's message to us. When Horse Spirit appears, you are gifted with the spirit of movement and freedom. It is a time for travel and adventure, whether that means a trip somewhere or taking a different type of journey, one of freedom of choice. Horse Spirit reminds you that no matter the circumstances, you have free will and choices that can take you far away to a better place, a better situation, a better state of being. For there is no one but you to rein in your will and to make a different decision. You are capable of making powerful choices that will affect you for a long time to come. Horses are social animals and known to be friends to mankind, willing to carry on forward when we need it. Horse Spirit reminds you that help will be available to you whenever you need it, and companions will be by your side wherever you choose to go, whatever direction you choose to travel. Life is an adventure, and Horse Spirit wants you to know that whatever choices you make, you have great spirit within, invisible, yet holding you up and always walking by your side. If your inquiry is about a relationship, you can set your heart free to experience love in all forms. Spirit whispers to you that the gift of freedom is yours if you allow yourself to break out of your perfectionism and stubbornness. Make a move and enjoy the freedom of letting go of the need to control. And our other Spirit Animal Oracle card is, and I'm taking it as a clarifier, seeing as it was hiding behind Horse Spirit, wanting to come out, Hawk Spirit. Let Spirit be your guide. So that isn't a reinforcement of freedom to surrender to Spirit, then I don't know what is. And I did shuffle these cards, and it is 32, and the other card was 33, so maybe there's a little serendipity in those numbers. Flying high above the landscape, the hawk sees both the big picture and the small details, observes the rain and the pond, as well as the cloud, and doesn't miss anything. When Hawk Spirit arrives, you are called to pay close attention to messages from Spirit that can appear anywhere in any form. Listen to your intuition and keep your eyes open for synchronicities, the meaningful coincidences. Hawk Spirit asks you not to dismiss the sign that Spirit is sending to guide you. Lately, have you been hearing the same word or song or coming across the same symbol here, there, and everywhere in the strangest places? Perhaps you hear a song on the radio with just the right lyric pertaining to your query, or you begin to notice uncanny billboards, license plates, or other places where repetitive numbers or words show up for you to notice. Pay attention to the animals that appear for you and connect with their symbolism. Spirit wants to communicate and reaches out again and again. When Hawk Spirit appears, it is a sign to listen. And I will read the protection message. Are you noticing red flags, perhaps saying to yourself, oh, what pretty flags, and giving them no more thought? Hawk Spirit has arrived to tell you to stop and listen to the messages from Spirit. Take the time to observe the patterns you are seeing and do not dismiss your intuition, even if the messages you receive are not supported by evidence in the physical world. If it feels illogical to listen right now, listen anyway. Sometimes you might want certain signs and messages to mean what you want them to mean, interpreting through the lens of wishful thinking, a projection of your desire to see things in a certain way. Of course, when you do that, you rarely find yourself where you want to be. Take heart. Spirit loves you so much and does not want you to get hurt, but to align with Spirit's plan for your highest good. Listen and follow the signs and check your motives when you are being selective with your hearing. And that's important to think about, right? Because very often we can be so determined, and of course we create our own reality by our emotions and how we project. And there's great magic and power in that. At the same time, if we are co-creating with spirit, we do have to understand too that we're not solely responsible, and that we do have to pay attention. And if there are certain things taking place in our lives, certain people, social circumstances, experiences within new experiences, ways that people communicate, we're just being reminded to pay attention to the frequency and follow the frequency rather than going against it, right? And it's interesting because we had those two, and the strong emphasis on freedom and surrendering to spirit. And then we also have from the Soul Journey card, which I felt was an underlying problem to a lot of the flow at present, and I know it has been the case for others, doubt. I release the need to know all the answers, and very often that is what causes doubt, right? Is when we are in the position where we need to know everything, we want to know the outcome, the cause, how we're going to get to our next goal, and spend so much time thinking about that we don't, not only do we not enjoy where we're at, but secondly, we might miss out on ways that spirit is offering in very obvious ways for us to reach our desires and our goals, right? It's impossible for the human brain to comprehend the mysteries of the universe. You are only consciously aware of the 3 dimensions for a reason, and that is to learn to love without the full awareness of your connection to spirit. Everyone has his or her own personal path to this awareness, and there is no right or wrong answer as long as your goal is to manifest the energy of love and compassion. The wisdom of the divine trickles into the physical dimension, and some of it will resonate with your soul and some will not. These are your signposts that guide you to your correct path. If the wisdom resonates with you and seems right, then keep it. If not, release it back to the universe. Always be aware and mindful of the insights that your spirit guides and teachers put on your path. So basically exactly what I just said, which is good confirmation, because I had doubts about that too. We had a 1-2 punch with our Star Code Astro Oracle, which I'm taking to be our learning deck to give us more insight into our process astrologically, and we got 2 cards that were concurrent, but they came out in the reverse order. So we start with number 17, Solar Flares, representing activation. So what does solar flares have to teach us? The sun's surface is always roiling. A flare can flash brightly on the surface or become a coronal mass ejection, many times the size of the Earth, that shoots out charged with particles. When these particles head toward Earth, not only are our electronics disrupted, but also our politics heat up as we question old systems and grow hungry for new answers. The volume turns up on all astrological activity. High peaks of solar activity were recorded around the French Revolution, the American Revolution, and during the mid-60s, times when people fought the status quo and sought revolutionary change, and we are having solar flares galore in this period of time. I mean, over the last couple of years. Action. Change is in the air. A flare of energy supports your work. The mood is restless, sparky, revolutionary, and curious. People are hungry for change. It's not the time to be quiet, but to be fast on your feet. And I will point out that we've just had Mars interacting with Chiron in Aries, and that has been very much the food for doubt to be sown, and creates a little bit of chaos from the heart place into action, where more confusion and frustration has manifested subconsciously into the collective, and certainly when I was out this evening earlier, I saw it on full display. I mean, people are just, I mean, honestly, sometimes I step out of my home when I've had a quiet weekend, when I've just been very much in my own space, and I find myself around people or other people driving or walking or on bicycles, or, I mean, and it is insane how, there's just, it just feels like there's like chaos around. Nothing seems orderly. People don't seem present in their bodies. It's something very bizarre. I don't know how to explain, but solar flares magnify the energy on any other cards you pull. So we'll be getting to that after, because I'll read the other card, but I guess this is an intensification of this reading in general. When the sun is storming, our social and political world activates. Revolutionary change manifests and trees grow faster in the forest. Aim carefully, because a solar flare brings momentum, not thoughtlessness, that you have to provide. A calm metaphysical perspective may not be easy, but you can bring that in to create balance and longevity. What you build during a solar flare may be hot and fervent, but not necessarily long-lived. To turn an idea or a love affair into something permanent, like a business plan or a partnership, will take conscious effort. The challenge of this time is that tempers flare along with the sun. You can scorch yourself with too much passionate action and not enough emotional sensitivity if you are not mindful. Well, hopefully we can channel that through the Cancerian energy, right? Because that does generally tend to temper all of that, and it is moon energy through Cancer, so the moon and the sun will have to face off, right? Gift. The sun is sending extra voltage and inspiration your way, so use it wisely. Feel the heat in the situation, the passion in the people involved. Then balance that fire by adding water's compassion, the thoughtfulness of air, and the logistics of earth to turn that inspiration into reality. And I just got a strong message that basically we are meant to be channeling our capacity to be the catalyst of calm within all of that chaotic energy from the solar flare. Which stands to reason why our clarifier, and what is amplified by that card that came, was number 16, which is solar calm clarify. So I'm going to take it this way. This is the outside world of the solar flare, and this is the inner world of our Cancerian energy, solar calm. It's very hard for me with my pseudo English American accent sometimes. I'm all over the place. Okay. When the sun is calm, with few sunspots or solar flares, its steady energy is quiet and soothes any turbulence in our solar system. The volume is turned down on all the other aspects of your astrological chart. Telescopes see farther into space. People tend to search for the metaphysical. Plant growth slows down on Earth, but the arts and creative processes often bloom. Politics tend to be opinionated but quiet, attitudes more entrenched. It's a hard time to start a revolution. Action. So this is from our inner self to the outside world, right? Just appreciate the deep, energizing quiet of this time. Work for steady progress and play the long game. Listen to your muse and support the arts. Take a creative approach and work toward positive change within the systems that are now in place with gentle, steady pressure. Find like minds and grow those deep connections. Listen to the quieter voices that are not usually heard, whether this is the whispering voice of your intuition or the subtle voice of the introverts or underrepresented. In romantic relationships, hold hands and look for places of quiet refuge together. Build relationships now that will help you to manifest needed changes when the tide turns and the sun activates. Challenge of this time: it is not the time to push ahead or spark change. If you try to motivate practical change in your life or try a totally new approach, it can feel like trying to light a match in the fog. Be patient and the fog will clear in time, and that is very much Cancer season to me. In fact, I associate Cancer season with fog, and I don't mean outer fog, although well, never mind. The gift of this time: meditation. Turn down the noise of the outer world and listen with clarity to the knowing within. Let go of the details of the story and feel the call to spirit, to connection, and to the interconnectedness of all existence. In this quiet clarity, you can see far away to the distant stars and come to understand the overarching patterns. And I understand where that's coming from, because personally I have felt that, where, intuitively, I know that I, would benefit from a spiritual moment in my day, aside from what I already practice, but I mean, like, in the evening when I'm back from work, or even on a day off, to do a meditation, or to switch my iPad on and record a video like this, taps me back into the flow of spirit and calms myself when I get swept away in the astrological and the planetary energies that are chaotic. And again, Cancer season for me, I don't know why, but it is always an emotionally intensified period of time for me. And I think a lot of it is because I personally, and I think a lot of us are that are on this journey, we find ourselves being equal introvert and extrovert, which means that I think at the solstice, and there tends to be that radical need to realign with the other side of the, with the pendulum needing to swing in the other direction, basically. So it's a jolt to the system, to the spiritual vessel, because we become so focused on, for me, I would say there's been a lot of Aries energy for me that has lingered, and that has, and Mars energy, and it's basically put me very much into a strategic yang perspective on rebuilding, putting systems in place. I guess it's also Saturnian and Capricornian as well. And figuring out my place in society, in my new circumstances, and I think, I'm speaking of myself, but I'm obviously projecting this as collective for all of us. Just a type of reassertion, or reinsertion, and blossoming, but in a way that is driven and so there's all this nervous energy that accompanies that, and that gets us out of alignment. So here that pendulum is swinging as we go into the solstice and move into Cancer energy, with the warmth of the sun coming to help us grow through that. But the requirement is to integrate a deeper spiritual practice. Sorry, I was literally just going with whatever was going through my brain, so if I sounded disjointed, that's one could call that channeling, I suppose, but I would never wish to say that because I feel like it makes me sound crazy. What's new? Okay, let's just get into the tarot. Our underlying energy, very nice energy. We have the Chariot, so a lot of movement here, a lot of reinforcement. That's the word I'm getting from the Chariot in this particular energy. And we're on the right path. So whatever we're doing right now, there's the wind beneath pushing us forward on this path, so as to eliminate the doubt, right? And it was clarified by the Four of Wands. Building strong foundations, another confirmation that what we're doing right now is spiritually aligned, and that in surrendering to spirit, we are being drawn to the light, to the right path of our higher purpose, right? Where are we coming out of? We have the Hanged Man energy. So the Hanged Man energy here is really assessing a period of time in our life that we could say that we were kind of in suspension before reaching this new path where we're aligned, you know, and maybe having to take a pause, a time out, a period of time to contemplate and to try to figure out how we want to grow, where we're not growing, what is holding us back. And maybe also that we'd gotten to the point, because I say this because our clarifier was the Page of Swords on that we had gotten to a point where we were not learning anymore because we had reached that kind of teacher's syndrome, you know, where it's like, I know what I know and this is how it is, and there's no room for new knowledge. And that period of deep contemplation has opened us back up to having the humility to understand that we are in perpetual learner mode, and our learner permit needs to go firmly back on our foreheads as we move forward. And humility is the word of that combination there, because this then in turn has taken us to a place which I'm feeling is kind of just where we've been in the last week or so, maybe 2 weeks for some. The Emperor, which is coming into ownership of our domain. It's coming into an understanding of the worth and the value of our hard work and efforts. And what that is clarified by is the Five of Wands in reverse. So it's actually really understanding that the way to be in our Emperor energy is to remove the sense of competition in our life, to understand the uniqueness of what we bring to the table, and therefore the lack of there being any reason for competitiveness. That the real winning path for us from a spiritual and a material perspective is to trust our uniqueness, and allow it to infuse everything that we are doing on this new path, right? This is giving me a timeline, because we get the moon after this, and I'm seeing this very much as being that last full moon in Sagittarius that we experienced, and which was very, very powerful in many ways, very much associated with Six of Cups energy. And where I'm seeing this is that, you know, we had a duality within us about what we were connecting ourselves to, and we were finding ourselves in the position where perhaps we were too split, in a form of looking towards people and things from our past as being our source of nurture, our source of support, and not understanding the wealth of strength within ourselves, and also therefore having faith that there's more ahead of us, there's more on the horizon, and that having calibrated ourselves with our inner child, being our own parent or inner child, being at peace with the parenting that we received, being seeing the beauty in the experiences that we have had, whether bittersweet or full of joy, you know, that the anchor to a sense of perhaps a idyllic or an idealized sense of the past was what was let go of with that Sagittarius full moon. And perhaps just, okay, I get it, feeling reassured in the knowledge that that exists, that past, it's a part of who we are, and it continues to be part of who we are, but that we have to make room for more in order to grow. The kindness of the reconciled heart is what motivates the heart to seek more. And it can be tricky, because where that leads us to is a choice, a difficult choice. This is the reinforcement of that moon. You know, of course, the moon is always, you know, are we choosing to surrender to a certain type of lunar energy? In other words, surrendering to spirit, or do we instead choose to lose ourselves and to go deep into the recesses of the subconscious, unresolved, dark, deep waters that we cannot actually figure out? You know, remember what the doubt card subtext was. I release the need to know all the answers. Well, the need to know all the answers will drive you to lunacy, right? And here we have the Two of Swords, that decision. This is the result of that full moon, probably also still ongoing on some level. You can recognize this within yourself, that you have the choice between this King of Swords energy, which is the idea of mastery of one's truth and one's determination and one's philosophy and one's values. In other words, the opposite of the Page of Swords that we saw from the Hangman energy, where we solidify ourselves into a bit of a rut, really, because we're still in this flesh vessel having a 3D experience. And if we, at this point in our life, are determined that because we're afraid of hurting or losing something, that we have to defend what we are in our minds and what we want to project, then we will feel confused by the continuation of the life energy that comes our way, right? And instead we have the choice on the other hand, these without the clarifiers on the other side that came out for us, of being in the Queen of Wands energy, which is a self-confidence in the flow of spirit, of surrendering to the, you see here's the sun. This is where we move into the sun. You have the sunflower here. You'll notice that when we go back to that Hanged Man card, because we talked about the solar energy in this reading, here that Hanged Man energy is a choice to be in the sun. It didn't come reverse where you can see that it would be in the moon. It's here instead. So, let me get back to where I was. You'll notice that, like, the swords generally have clouds in the background. The clouds are thoughts, and whereas the Queen of Wands, the wands, it's more of a, an aura or something, because it's inspiration, and that is the choice that we have to make from that surrendering to spirit and from letting go of the armor. And it in turn opens our heart up to receive the Ace of Cups, which is a renewal, an emotional renewal, an emotional flow that we perhaps have been cut off from for a long time. To be able to receive, rather than our next card, which of course, because the pendulum has to swing, so we have to go into it. What is that energy going to do to us when we make that choice? It's going to give us the opportunity to purge from this. And again, if you look at the Three of Swords in this upright, this is not a person who is overwhelmed by their pain and their sorrow. This is a person who is surrendering to the flow, accepting that this is an experience, that it is set in stone, this experience, because it's of the past, but that you can receive divine inspiration, to receive new thought patterns, new belief structures, which in turn gives us over to the ultimate solar energy card, the Sun card. And the Sun card is a card of surrender. It's absolute surrender to spirit. Again, here you see, represented as it was in the Queen of Wands card, the sunflowers reappearing. Sunflowers are representations of hope and faith and an understanding of the infinite flow of energy that feeds us. And so we drop our swords. We accept that everything that we've experienced is exactly how it was supposed to be experienced, and that nothing of the Piscean victim mentality serves any purpose for us at this point whatsoever. And of course, we've been working on this for years, but those energetic upgrades, they just bring us closer and closer to a sense of closure on those things, of understand. They just become more and more ridiculous, right? They just start to seem when you find yourself in the position where you feel overwhelmed or anxious or sad or frustrated or scared, and you realize, because you've been doing all of this work on yourself and surrendering to spirit, that you cannot change the past. You can only be present. And you choose in that present moment how you feel. If you wish to step out of your anxiety or your angst, or your anger, you can breathe, you can meditate, you can remove yourself from the imbalance. And it may take 10 minutes, it may take 30 minutes, it may take an hour if you're really like there, but if you can give yourself that time and space to actually follow your breath and bring calm to yourself, the emotions, the reactiveness, all of it becomes absurd, and you step into your magician energy, because that is exactly what that is, understanding that you create your own reality in co-creation with spirit, and that in order to receive from spirit and to be properly aligned with spirit, you have to be in the magician mode. You have to surrender what you cannot change, and then you have to embrace what you can, which is your thoughts, your mindset, how open you are. You can be angry at somebody or a situation. You can be saddened by somebody or by a situation. You can be afraid of somebody or of a situation. But, and I'm not saying that there's no reason for that, but if you strip away the core visceral, primal aspect of that and understand that it is not your body in chaos, that it is your thoughts that are in chaos, then you become the magician. You can shift it however you want. Which in turn, we have a breakthrough on the horizon, because we are now moving into our future energy. So this is our solstice. This is our solstice map here. So essentially for the next 6 months, this message will resonate as a more and more of a reinforcement in our lives. We have the Death card showing a complete rebirth from the conditioning that kept us in that struggle of subconsciously creating negative outcomes for ourselves through our low frequency emotional mindset. I couldn't even get clarifiers on those two cards because they were just so transparently on the nose. Our outcome for our solstice energy reading, we had two cards. The High Priestess, of course, the ultimate reinforcement, also sitting on the new moon, so a good indication that this energy comes to a heightened resolution around the time of the new moon in Cancer, which I believe is on the 28th of June, certainly where I live in California, so somewhere around there for you. There's a real heightened spiritual energy coming in through the Cancer season. This is a very particular Cancer season for us, one of deep spiritual revolution for us because of what we just talked about. Finally harnessing our ability to understand that we are the magician that creates our emotional resonance, our frequency, our vibration, and putting that into practice on a daily basis, that whenever we find ourselves out of alignment, we are able to reel it in, correct it, and rechannel ourselves towards our higher purpose, which is to resonate at the highest frequency possible, right? No matter what, which is love. And our other outcome card, these are not the clarifiers, by the way, these are just the cards, was the Three of Cups. And the Three of Cups emphasizes an idea of community, an idea of recommitting to the people around us, finding new dynamics, perhaps within pre-existing relationships. I don't think everybody's just going to suddenly have all new people, but many of us have been experiencing having new people in our lives. And so it is that opportunity to have a heightened sense of community, perhaps finally coming into alignment with just the very start, even of people and energies coming into your life that are aligned with your truth, who you are. People and situations that allow you to shine as you are in the fullness of your value. And that hasn't been true for a long time for most of us, right? We've had to make ourselves small and fit in and put up with a lot of conditioning from bullies, authoritarians, idiots. No more, because you're that frequency magician. And the clarifier on that was strength over poverty consciousness. Again, how long have we been looking at that poverty consciousness card come and go? It's a fundamental part of human nature, of course, to have this conditioning as a result of the traumas of living in the type of dark society in which we have lived. But we're stronger than that. There's not much more to it than that. In fact, that is our reading for the solstice. So, on that note, I am delighted that we spend this time together. I'm delighted to have had this clarity for myself too, because I have been rewarded somewhat in the 3D realm of late, but unfortunately I found myself feeling out of alignment regardless of that, and feeling a sense of lack, feeling a sense of alienation, feeling a sense of disconnect, becoming more and more acutely aware of seeing it becomes more and more transparent just how low frequency so many people are. And I just, I've been struggling to give myself the permission to not have the patience to endure that, and and also to either shit or get off the pot, basically, in a lot of things in my life, because I don't like gray zones, and in life there are a lot of gray zones, and that's just the way it is. So I'm having to, another part of this reading perhaps is this reason I'm now sharing this at the very end, is that we have to come to terms with gray zones. We have to accept them, and we have to embrace them, and we have to make space for them, and understand that no relationship is black and white unless it's like life or death or threat. It's the ebb and flow. The pendulum swings all the time, and that's the way that relationships are. And when we have a broken little ego that still wants to lash out and kind of be like, oh, well, I've been abandoned, or I'm not feeling validated or valued, or I'm, well, then that's just a call to provide that for ourselves, right? Because we're not supposed to be allowing anybody else to dictate our worth. So anyway, that's a tangent. That's just one little example, but maybe if that resonated, or you can adapt that to some other poverty consciousness mentality within yourself, then that's just my way of illustrating what that conclusion might manifest as on one small level. In any case, I think this came out as a very channeled reading. I honestly feel exhausted from doing it, not in a negative way, but hopefully it is calming and uplifting in some shape or form. It was a very positive message, and I felt lots of little, I felt the energy around us. I think I even saw a couple of orbs, but I send you lots and lots of love, and yeah, let's reconvene towards or after the new moon and see where this has taken us. But happy solstice. May these next 6 months be filled with rewards that you and I deserve. Namaste.